The underwater guide of Little Fish Bubble in the Azure underwater world. There lives a little goldfish named Bobo. Its scales are golden and shiny, as if sprinkled with a handful of broken gold. Its tail is like a transparent little fan. When it swims, it paddles the water with a swish, swish, swish sound, and behind it follows a string of shiny little bubbles. Even the corals on the seabed like to sway their branches towards it, because the bubbles are known as the living map of the seabed, knowing every coral cluster and every reef inside out. One early morning, Baobo was chasing little shrimps among the seaweed when suddenly he heard a woo cry. It was Yoyu, a little seahorse that had just moved to the bottom of the sea. It came out with its mother to look for food, but got lost after a few rounds. Looking at the unfamiliar rocks around, it was so anxious that its tail hung down. Bubble swam over quickly and gently touched Yoyu with its fin. "Don't worry, I'll take you to find Mum." It remembered seeing its mother's seahorse near the rainbow coral cluster in the morning, so it took Yoyu to swim towards the coral cluster. While swimming, it introduced to Yoayu, "Look, that's the luminous jellyfish sister. That's the shell grandpa who can play hide, dash and dash seek, ... It wasn't long before the mother seahorse swam over in a hurry and slowly threw herself into her arms. The mother seahorse wagged her tail at the bubble as if saying, "Thank you so much." In the morning, Baobo swam to the reef area and saw the little crab Kion squatting on a rock, worried. Kion wanted to find the small conch hidden in the shell for lunch, but after searching for a long time, he couldn't find it. His big pincer was a bit exhausted. Bubble's eyes lit up, and she swam behind a big rock with her pincers. "I know there are many shells hiding conchs here." It gently pushed aside the seaweed with its tail, and indeed a pile of shells with patterns was exposed. The pincers happily opened the shells with their pincers and gave the biggest conch to the bubble. "This is for you. Thank you for helping me find food." At noon, a small current suddenly came to the bottom of the sea, carrying the little starfish Xing Xing to the deep sea area. Xing Xing was so scared that it clung tightly to the reef and dared not move. When Bobo noticed this, he quickly swam over, blocking the water flow with his body. He also found a few small fish to swim slowly around the stars, guiding the water to the nearby spot. The star was finally able to slowly crawl back to the shallow water area. It winked at the bubble and turned its brightest corner towards it, as if giving it a little star. In the evening, the setting sun filtered through the sea, dyeing the seabed a warm orange-red bubble, sat beside the rainbow coral cluster, surrounded by Yoi Jianshan and Xing Xing, sharing conchs and sweet seaweed. Bo chewed on the seaweed, looked at the smiling faces of his friends, and gently paddled his tail in the water. Suddenly, he felt that being everyone else's underwater guide and helping his friends solve problems was even more enjoyable than chasing after little shrimps to play. It turns out that even a tiny fish can, through its own familiarity and friendliness, become a little sun in the underwater world, bringing warmth and joy to every friend. Such underwater life is even more dazzling than golden scales and more delicious than sweet seaweed. A heartwarming memory of the continuous grassland, with little sheep and cattle on the green grassland. There lived a special little animal named Myeon. It had the soft, curly white fur of a lamb, as if wrapped in a layer of cotton candy, and the round black eyes of a calf, like two shiny black grapes. Everyone affectionately called it Little Lamb Cow. Myeon is neither like a lamb that only loves to eat tender grass, nor like a calf that loves to run around everywhere. It likes to stroll leisurely on the grassland the most, and always helps its friends solve small troubles. One early morning, Myeon was grazing on the grass when she suddenly heard a ba-ba-ba cry. It was the little lamb Duet. It had come out to eat grass with its mother and accidentally got separated. Standing there, it was so anxious that it was shedding tears. Myeon hurriedly ran over and rubbed Duadwu with her soft, curly hair, saying, "Don't be afraid, I'll help you find your mum." It remembered that it had just seen the mother sheep by the flower beds in the east. So it led Duadwo slowly towards the east, and would stop from time to time to let Duadwo take a few bites of the tenderest green grass. It wasn't long before the mother sheep came over anxiously. Duadwo threw herself into her mother's arms. The mother sheep gave a grateful bay to Myeon, as if saying, "Thank you." In the morning, Myeon met the little cow Juang, who was worried about a pile of green grass. Juang wanted to carry the freshly cut grass home for his younger siblings to eat, but the grass pile was too big for him to pull alone. Myeon's eyes lit up, and she said, "Let me help you." It gently pushed against the haystack with its soft little horns on its head. Yes, it also had a pair of small, non-pricking horns, with Guangshuang pulling in front. The two of them worked together with all their might, slowly pushing the haystack towards the calf's home. A passing pony saw this and said with a smile, "Myeon and Juongguang are truly the best partners on the grassland." At noon, the sun was a bit scorching. The little animals on the grassland all hid under the big trees to cool off. Myeon saw that the little hedgehog Kuki could find a shady spot and was huddled in place, sweating. So she hurried over and let Kuki hide beside her curly hair. Myeon's curly hair was thick and soft, which could block the sunlight. Kuki lay beside it and felt much cooler at once. Kuki shook her little paws at Myeon and handed over a sweet wild strawberry. In the evening, the setting sun dyed the grassland. An orange-red Myeon was sitting under a big tree, surrounded by Duadwo, Juangguang, and Kugi. They were sharing wild strawberries and green grass cookies. Myeon bit into the sweet wild strawberries. Looking at the smiling faces of her friends, her heart felt warm. It suddenly felt that it was not at all strange to be both a lamb and a calf. It was precisely because of this that it could help different companions. It turns out that no matter what one looks like, as long as there is a heart willing to help, one can become the most popular little animal on the grassland. Such a life on the grassland is sweeter than cotton candy and more fragrant than green grass. The little snail's slow forest appointment in the forest after the rain, there lived a little snail among the moss. Everyone called him Mung. His shell is brownish, like a small earthenware pot with spiral patterns fastened around it. Wherever he climbs, a shiny silver line is left behind, as if a handful of scattered stars have been scattered. It's really slow to climb slowly. From the dandelion grove to the clover field, it takes others 3 steps to walk, but it takes him quite a while. But he always says, it doesn't matter if it's slow. As long as you keep moving towards your goal, you'll eventually reach it. That early morning Mungman was lying on a leaf, munching on breakfast, when suddenly he heard the anxious voice of the little ladybug. I have unsent my birthday invitation to Sister Butterfly on the other side of the mountain, but I dare not cross the stream. What should I do? Dion's wings were covered with dew and couldn't fly far. She was so anxious that she kept spinning in circles. Slowly crawling over, he gently touched Dion's antennae and said, "Let me deliver it for you. Although I'm slow, I'm sure I can deliver it." Dion placed the tiny folded invitation letter on Mung's shell and repeatedly reminded, "Just deliver it before noon tomorrow. Thank you, Mung." Slowly carrying the invitation letter on his back, he set off. When passing by the stream, he found a round willow leaf to use as a small boat, drifting slowly with the current. He also carefully stuck the invitation letter to the shell with sticky liquid, fearing that it might be blown away by the wind. When climbing up the hillside, the sun gradually became a little hot. He hid in his shell to rest for a while, and then continued climbing forward. A shiny silver thread wove a guiding rope behind him. In the evening, I finally climbed to the flower bed of Sister Butterfly. Sister Butterfly was both surprised and delighted to see Mung covered in dew. "You actually sent it." "I thought I would have to wait until tomorrow." Taking a deep breath, she handed over the invitation and said, Dion is waiting to celebrate your birthday with you. I promise to keep my word." Sister Butterfly smiled and placed a petal with nectar on the slow shell. "This is a thank you gift for you. It's sweet, eat it on the way." The next morning, as he slowly carried the petals on his back, he happened to meet Dion, who had come to pick him up. Dion looked at the petals on Mung's shell and then at the silver thread behind him, and said emotionally, "Mung, you are so amazing." I slowly took a bite of the petal, and a sweet taste spread in my mouth. He suddenly felt that it didn't matter if he crawled a little slower, he could see the dewdrops by the roadside, hear the singing of the birds, and still keep the promise with his friends. When the sun rose high above our heads, Dion slowly sat on the clover, sharing the remaining petals. The gentle breeze in the forest blew, carrying the fragrance of dewdrops. Slowly, the silver threads sparkled in the sunlight, as if telling a story. It turns out that even a tiny snail can fulfill a big promise with patience. The persistence hidden in the slow pace is more precious than anything else. The heartwarming beach story of Little Crab Pincer. By the golden sandy beach lived a little crab named Chianchon. He was dressed in a hard-shelled little armor of bluish-gray, swaying sideways as he walked, like a wobbling little warrior. The most eye-catching feature was a pair of large round pincers, with the jaws shining brightly, looking particularly powerful. At first, the friends on the beach were a little afraid of his pliers. It wasn't until they found out that the pliers were not used to scare people, but rather small tools that could help everyone with their tasks. That early morning, Qianchen was looking for shells in the shallow sea, when she suddenly heard a woo cry. It was little Conch Duat. She had been washed ashore by the waves, and her shell was stuck in a crevice of a stone and wouldn't move at all. Jianshan quickly crawled sideways, gently clamped the edge of the stone crack with big pliers, gradually loosened the stone, and carefully pulled Duodwo's shell out of the crack. "Thank you, pliers." Duodwo lay in the shallow water and blew a small bubble into Qianjin, as if giving him a shiny little gift. In the morning, Qianjin was basking in the sun on the beach when she saw the little turtle Yoayu sighing at a pile of broken corals. Yoayu wanted to lay a soft cushion for her little nest, but the broken corals were too sharp and she always cut herself when she used her fins to scrape. Immediately, the pliers crawled over, carefully picked up the broken corals with their large pliers, and neatly laid them down at the edge of Yoayu's nest with the pointed side facing down. They also found a few soft pieces of seaweed to spread on top. Yoayu lay in warm nest and happily said to Xianchen, "Your pliers are even more useful than a small shovel." At noon, the little hermit crabs on the beach came running anxiously for help. The small shells they had stored had been washed away by the waves, and some had even fallen into deep sand pits that they could not dig out, no matter how hard they tried. Pincers rushed over and used big pincers to dig the sand like a small shovel. In no time, they had dug out all the shells from the sandpit and even helped the little hermit crabs arrange the shells neatly. The little hermit crabs surrounded Pincer and gave him the most beautiful little pearl. In the evening, the setting sun dyed the sea surface orange-red. Xianchen sat on the beach holding a little pearl in her arms. Watching her friends play in the shallow sea, Duodwo was floating around in the water. Yoayu was dozing off in her nest, and the little hermit crabs were running around with shells in their arms. He shook his big pliers and suddenly felt that the way he walked sideways and the round pliers were both unique treasures. It turns out that as long as you help others with your heart, even the most special appearance can become the one everyone likes. The days on the beach, because of the helpful little crab pincers, have become brighter and happier than little pearls. The heartwarming story of the little snake in the forest. In the grass of the forest lived a little snake called Wanwan. Its body is a light bluish green, as if wrapped in a layer of spring grass leaves with fine white patterns on it. When it gets up, its body twists and turns flexibly, like a moving little ribbon. At first, the little animals in the forest were a little afraid of it. It wasn't until they found out that Won-Won was actually a warm-hearted little helper. One early morning Won-Won was basking in the sun on a branch when suddenly she heard a weak gee-gee sound. It was the chirping of a bird just learning to fly, which had accidentally fallen from its nest and hung on a vine with its wings tightly bound and unable to break free. Won-Won hurriedly climbed over, gently bypassing the vines with her soft body, and gradually untangled the vines that were entwined around Juju's wings. Its movements were particularly gentle, fearing to hurt Choo-Choo. It wasn't until Choo-Choo could fly again that Won-Won heaved a sigh of relief. "Thank you, Won-Won." Choo-Choo flew around Won-Won twice and gave it a sweet red fruit. In the morning, Won-Won was drinking water by the stream when she saw the little squirrel Go-Go squatting on a stone, worried. It wanted to carry the nuts it had found home, but there were too many to fit in its pocket, and they rolled all over the ground. Won-Won's eyes lit up. She coiled her body into a round little basket and asked Guo-Guo to put the nuts in the middle of her body. It held the nut steadily and climbed back into the tree hole with Guo-Guo, not even dropping a single nut. Guo-Guo said emotionally, "Won-Won, your body is even better than my little pocket." At noon, a gentle wind suddenly blew in the forest, carrying the scarf that Grandma Rabbit had sun-dried on the branches onto the high tree branches. Grandma Rabbit, standing on tiptoe, couldn't reach it and sighed anxiously. Won-Won hurriedly climbed over, nimbly climbing along the tree trunk to the branch. She wrapped her body around the scarf, slowly pulled it down, and gently placed it in Grandma Rabbit's hand. Grandma Rabbit stroked Won-Won's head and said with a smile, "Our Won-Won is such a good child. We are not scary at all." In the evening, the setting sun dyed the forest orange-red. Won-Won was lying on the grass, surrounded by Juju, Guo-Guo, and Grandma Rabbit. They were sharing red fruits and sweet carrots. Won-Won chewed the red fruit and suddenly felt, "Being able to help my friends solve problems is much happier than basking in the sun alone in the grass." It turns out that no matter how you look on the outside, as long as you have a warm heart, you can become everyone's good friend. The days in the forest have become more and more lively and sweet because of the helpful little snake sweet ice cream with summer magic on a summer afternoon. The sun warmed the streets. In the ice cream truck at the street corner, a special ice cream was born, called Tien. Its cone is crispy golden yellow, like a freshly baked small trumpet. It is filled with tender pink strawberry cream and sprinkled with a circle of shiny sugar grains on top. Even the air is filled with a sweet fragrance. Whenever someone passes by, they can't help but take a second look at it. At this moment, the little girl Lele came over with her head down, her eyes red. She had just had a quarrel with her good friend, and it felt like a small stone was blocking her heart. The aunt selling ice cream noticed Lala's unhappiness and smiled as she handed Tian Tian to her, saying, "Try this ice cream that will bring you happiness." Lele took a bite. The strawberry cream melted in her mouth, sweet and cool, as if she had swallowed the summer breeze. The corners of her mouth gradually curled up, and it seemed as if the little stone in her heart had been melted. Lele was holding Tian Tian and had just taken 2 steps when he saw his good friend Duaduo sitting on the bench, also with her head down, looking unhappy. It turns out that Duaduo was also sad about the quarrel. Lele hurried over and handed Tian Tian to Duaduo, saying, "Let's eat together. This ice cream is super sweet." Duaduo took a bite and her eyes lit up immediately. The 2 children took bites one after another and finished the sweet food in no time. The previous unhappiness vanished as well. They held hands and started running and jumping with smiles as before. The aunt watched their backs and made another ice cream just like Tian's, handing it to the little brother beside her. The little brother had just fallen down and his knee hurt a little. But after taking a bite of the ice cream, he immediately stopped crying and even showed a sweet smile to the aunt. Later, the aunt distributed strawberry-flavored, chocolate-flavored ice cream to the passing children. Each child who got the ice cream had a happy smile on their face. When the sun was setting in the west, the ice cream truck was getting ready to close up. Although the sweet food had been eaten up, its sweetness still lingered on the corners of Lele and Duaduo's mouths. In the laughter of the little brother, and in every corner of the summer street. It turns out that a small ice cream is not only the coolness of summer, but also hides a magic that can make people happy. As long as you share this sweetness, even the slightest unhappiness will be melted into a full load of joy. A heartwarming memory of the little turtle slowly walking in the pond at the edge of the village lived a little turtle, and everyone called him Mung. His shell was dark green with hexagonal patterns like a delicate little shield covering it. His 4 short legs moved slowly, and it took him quite a while to climb onto the stone, even to bask in the sun. But he was not in a hurry at all. He always said, "Take it easy. You will eventually reach the place you want to go." That early morning, just as slowly climbed onto a rock to bask in the sun. He heard a plop. It was little shrimp Tiao Tao. It had been washed by the current into a mud puddle by the bank, and was getting further and further away from the pond. It was so anxious that it was jumping around, slowly and hurriedly crawled over, using a hard shell to block the sunlight and prevent the water in the mud puddle from drying up quickly. Then, with small claws, he dug the soil bit by bit, connecting the mud puddle and the pond to form a small waterway. When the water flowed into the mud puddle, Tiao Tiao was finally able to swim back to the pond. It slowly circled around twice. "Thank you, Mung Mung. Though you are slow, you are more reliable than anyone else." In the morning, the little ants by the pond were about to move, but a big rock blocked their way. The ants couldn't push them or get around, and they were so anxious that they were pacing around in circles. After slowly seeing it, he slowly climbed to the side of the stone, gently pressed the stone with his shell, and moved forward bit by bit. Although it took a lot of effort and small water droplets appeared on his forehead, he finally pushed the stone aside, making way for the ants. The ant captain led everyone to drop the sweetest dewdrops on the slowly shell, as if putting a string of shiny little necklaces on it. In the afternoon, it suddenly started to drizzle. The newly hatched duckling, Huang Huang, couldn't find a place to take shelter from the rain. Its fur was soaked through, and it was shivering with cold. Slowly and quickly he crawled over, let Huang Huang hide under his shell, and then slowly moved his body, following Huang Huang's footsteps, to bring it back to its mother duck. The mother duck quacked slowly, as if saying, "Thank you so much." In the evening, the rain stopped, and a rainbow appeared on the horizon. Slowly lying on the stone, I watched my friends in the pond. Tiao Tiao was swimming happily in the water. Ants were carrying new grains, and Huang Wang was learning to swim with his mother. My heart felt warm. He slowly shook his head and suddenly felt, it doesn't matter if you walk slowly. As long as you are willing to help, you can become everyone's little helper. It turns out that the little turtle's slowness hides great patience. The days in the pond, because of this slow warmth, become like a rainbow after the rain, soft and sweet, making people's hearts warm. 以上翻译结果来自有道神经网络翻译 YNMT 通用场景主句对照 AI 润色 A heartwarming story of a strong elephant on the grassland. On the vast green grassland lived an elephant named Zhuang Yuang. He has thick grey skin, as if wrapped in a layer of soft armor. His long nose can curl and stretch like a flexible little whip. His two big ears flap up, bringing a cool breeze. All the little animals on the grassland like to be friends with him. One early morning, Zhuang Shuang was drinking water by the river when suddenly he heard a series of anxious chirping sounds. It was the little sparrow Tuan Chuan. Its companion, Yuan Yuan, had accidentally fallen into a mud pit by the river, and its wings were covered with mud, unable to fly. Zhuang Shuang hurried over, gently rolled up Yuan Yuan with his long nose, carefully placed it on the clean grass, and then sucked in the river water with his nose to tenderly wash the mud off Yuan Yuan's wings. Yuan Yuan shook her clean wings and called twice at Zhuang Zhuang, as if saying, "Thank you." In the morning, Zhuang Zhuang was taking a walk on the grassland when he saw the little antelope, Duwaduo, squatting on the ground worrying. It wanted to eat the tender leaves on the tree, but the tree was too tall and it couldn't reach no matter how hard it jumped. Zhuang Zhuang immediately walked to the tree, rolled his long nose around the branch, and gave it a gentle pull. The branch then drooped down. Duwaduo happily ate the tender leaves, and from time to time she would raise her head and sway her horns at Zhuang Zhuang, looking extremely cute. Zhuang Zhuang watched Duwaduo enjoying her meal and also rolled up a leaf with his nose, chewing it slowly. At noon, the sun was scorching hot. The little animals on the grassland were all hiding in the shade of trees due to the heat. Duangushwang saw the little hedgehog Kyuki lying on a stone, panting for breath from the heat. He quickly walked over and opened his big ears to fan him. A cool breeze suddenly blew onto Kyuki. Kuki curled up comfortably and said to Juangguang, "Juangguang, your big ears are really the best little fans." Upon hearing this, Juangguang fanned even harder and called all the little animals around over to enjoy the cool breeze together. In the evening, a faint glow of the sunset rose over the grassland. Juangguang sat on the grass, surrounded by Tuan, Yuan, Duadua, and Kukaho, all sharing sweet wild fruits. Duangzwang handed the biggest wild fruit to Kuaki with his nose and said with a smile, "It's more delicious when we all eat it together." Kuaki took the wild fruit and happily began to chew on it. Looking at the smiling faces of his friends, Juanguswang suddenly felt that his long nose and big ears were not only for eating and enjoying the cool, but also could help everyone solve problems. It turns out that within great power lies great tenderness. The days on the grassland, because of being able to share happiness and help each other with friends, have become more delicious than sweet wild fruits and more comfortable than the cool evening breeze. 以上翻译结果来自有道神经网络翻译 YNMT 通用场景。The soft forest growth story of a caterpillar on the apple tree in spring. There crawled a tiny caterpillar called Ruin. Its body is tender green, covered with fine down and a few faint yellow stripes. It climbs up slowly, like a moving little leaf. The thing that Ruanrian likes to do most is to chew on the sweet apple leaves and explore the little secrets in the forest. One early morning, Ruanroom was lying on a leaf, munching on her breakfast. Suddenly, she heard an anxious buzzing sound. It was the buzzing of a little bee. While gathering nectar, it had accidentally entangled its wings in the spider web, and the more it struggled, the tighter the entanglement became. Ruin quickly crawled over and bit through the spider silk, bit by bit with its tiny mouth. But although the silk was thin and tough, making its mouth sour from biting, it never stopped until it completely unfurled its buzzing wings. "Thank you so much." Soft Hip buzzed up and brought a drop of sweet nectar to Ruin. Ruin tasted it and found it was even sweeter than an apple leaf. At noon, Ruin climbed up a branch to bask in the sun and saw little Aunt Duadro carrying a grain of wheat larger than herself, panting for breath from exhaustion. Ruin wanted to help, but she was too weak to move the grains of wheat. It had a sudden inspiration and crawled over, bending a wide leaf with its body to make a little slide. It asked Duadwo to place the wheat grains on the leaf and slide slowly down the slide to the entrance of the ant nest. Duadwo shook her antennae at Ruin and happily carried the wheat grains into her home. Day by day passed, and Ruin ate so many leaves that her body became chubby. It found a hidden leaf and began to spin silk and form a cocoon, wrapping itself in the warm cocoon. During the days in the cocoon, Ruin often recalled the times when she helped Weng untie the spider silk and helped Duadwu carry the wheat grains, feeling sweet in her heart. After some time, a crack appeared in the soft cocoon, and it slowly emerged. Oh, it grew a pair of colorful wings and turned into a beautiful butterfly. Flapping its wings softly, it flew up. For the first time, it saw the forest from the air. The apple leaves were like a green carpet, and the little flowers were like colorful stars. It flew to the side of the little friend it had helped before, buzzing around it and dancing. Duaduo, along with the ants, waved at it. Under the setting sun, it flapped its colorful wings softly and flew happily in the forest. It suddenly realized that whether it was a tiny caterpillar or a beautiful butterfly, they could all bring help to their companions. It turns out that growth is not only about becoming stronger oneself, but also about moving forward with warmth. Such a forest journey is truly wonderful. The green four-season travel notes of the little leaf on the maple tree in spring. A tiny new leaf sprouted, and everyone called it green green. Its body is tender, with faint serrations along the edges. The color is a bright light green, like jade washed by the spring rain. When the wind blows, it gently sway, singing the song of spring together with the little birds on the branches. One early morning, little Aunt Guaguo was carrying her luggage to her grandma's house. But a small stream blocked her way. When Guogo was running around in circles in anxiety, LV saw it and quickly shouted to her, "Guogo, I'll be your little boat." Grandpa Wind gave a gentle blow, and LV floated onto the stream. Guagu quickly jumped up and sat steadily in the middle of LV. LV carried Guagu, drifting slowly along the stream. She also shielded Guagu from the splashing water and safely sent him to the opposite bank. "Thank you, Green Green." Guagu waved goodbye, and LV smiled and said, "Remember to come and see me in autumn. Summer has come." LV has grown big and green, becoming the most eye-catching leaf on the maple tree. The midday sun was scorching hot. Little ladybugs were lying on the leaves, almost dizzy from the sun. LV quickly stretched out her body like a small green umbrella, blocking the sunlight completely. Dion lay under LV, enjoying the breeze and falling asleep comfortably. In her dream, she mumbled, "LV's umbrella is so cool. Autumn has come." The green body gradually turns golden yellow, with a hint of orange-red at the edge, as if wearing a colorful little coat. One day, the little squirrel Lely came to pick up leaves to make a nest. When he saw LV, his eyes lit up. "This leaf is so beautiful, it can just be my little blanket." LV gently swayed her body and floated down from the branch, landing in Lele's arms. Lele spread the green grass on the warm, dry grass. At night, she lay on it, smelling the fragrance of the leaves and sleeping very soundly. When winter is approaching, the green has turned deep red and will drift away at the slightest touch. It saw the little birds collecting soft things to build their nests, so it said to them, "Let me be your little cushion." The little birds happily carried green back to their nests and spread it on the bottom layer. LV lay in the bird's nest, listening to the chirping of the little birds, feeling warm in her heart. When the snowflakes were falling, although green gradually became dry, it wasn't sad at all. It had helped the little ants cross the river, provided shade for the little ladybugs, served as a blanket for the little squirrels, and even made a cushion for the little birds. Looking at the vast white forest, LV suddenly realized that no matter it was the tender green spring, the emerald green summer, or the golden autumn, every period of time could be of help to her friends. It turns out that a tiny leaf can leave so many warm stories throughout the 4 seasons. How fortunate it is. The guardian of the little dog Ah Huang's courtyard. In the small courtyard of Grandma Li's home lives a little yellow dog named Ah Huang. Its fur is a warm golden yellow as if wrapped in a layer of sunlight. It droops 2 soft ears. When it runs, its tail wags like a small flag. Its nose is particularly sensitive and can smell every scent in the yard. The aroma of the cured meat dried by Grandma, the fragrance of flowers in the flower pots, and the smell of snacks hidden by its friends. That early morning, while Grandma was drying the quilt in the yard and turning to go to the kitchen to get something, the thimble used for sewing the quilt was gone. Grandma was so anxious that she was looking everywhere. When Ah Huang saw this, he immediately came over, sniffed Grandma's hand, then lowered his head and walked around the yard, pressing his nose to the ground and sniffing whoosh whoosh. In no time, it ran to the rose bushes and gently scraped off the soil with its paws. It turned out that the thinger had fallen into the gap of the bushes. Grandma picked up the thimble and patted Ah Huang's head with a smile, saying, Ah Huang is really a great little detective. In the morning, the little brother of the neighbor came to play in the yard. By accident, he dropped his favorite toy car into a hole in the corner of the yard. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get it out. He was so anxious that he almost cried. Ah Huang hurried over, stuck his head into the hole to smell it, and then carefully pulled out the toy car with his mouth. He gently rubbed his little brother's hand as if saying, "Don't be sad." The little brother, holding the toy car, immediately burst into laughter and shared the beef jerky in his pocket with Ah Huang to eat. In the afternoon, Grandma was going to the market to buy vegetables and asked Ah Huang to stay at home to guard the door. Ah Huang sat obediently at the door, his ears pricked up high and his eyes fixed on the gate of the courtyard. A stranger passing by wanted to come in and ask for directions. Ah Huang just gave a soft woof sound and didn't scream randomly. When Grandma came back with the vegetable basket, it immediately ran over, helped her pick up the bag containing green vegetables, and carried it all the way to the kitchen. Grandma smiled and said, "Ah Huang is really my good helper." In the evening, the setting sun dyed the small courtyard an orange red. Ah Huang lay at his grandma's feet with sweet dried meat in his stomach. He looked at the roses in the yard, the sun-dried quilts, and the little brother running from afar to play with him, his tail gently swaying. Suddenly, it felt that guarding the small courtyard and helping its grandma and friends was even more enjoyable than gnawing on its favorite bones. It turns out that being a warm little dog, bringing joy to everyone with companionship and help. Such days are just like the meatballs made by Grandma, fragrant and warm, making people's hearts sweet. A strong underwater repair shop for lobsters beside the Coral City under the Azure Sea. There lived a lobster named Zhuangzhuang. He was dressed in a bright red hard armor with 2 long beards swaying on his head. The most eye-catching feature was a pair of large bluish-grey pliers, with their jaws shining brightly, looking particularly powerful. At first, the friends at the bottom of the sea were a little afraid of his big pliers, but they found out that Zhuangzhuang's pliers were not used to scare people, but rather repair tools that could help them solve problems. One early morning, Zhuangzhuang was basking in the sun on the rock, when suddenly he heard the anxious shout of the little hermit crab Dodo, "There's a crack in my shell house. The seawater is about to seep in." Zhuangguang hurriedly climbed over, carefully picked up the small conch shell fragments beside him with big pliers, and then found the sticky seaweed from the seabed. Like a little craftsman, he gradually stuck the fragments onto the crack. His pliers were controlled so steadily that even the tiniest fragments could be precisely clamped. In no time, he had fixed the shell house. Dudu got into the shell and tried it out, happily saying, "It doesn't leak at all." The strong pliers are even more useful than the repairman's small hammer. In the morning, Zhuangzhuang passed by the water plant house of Haima Yowu and saw Yowu sighing at the broken water plant swing. The big waves yesterday had broken the rope of the swing, and she could no longer swing on it to enjoy the scenery. Zhuangzhuang's eyes lit up. He used big pliers to pick up several strong kelp ropes and found a smooth pebble as the swingboard. In no time, he tied the swing back together. He deliberately tightened the kelp rope with pliers and said with a smile, "Relax and swing. It's even stronger than before." Yoayu sat on the swing, swinging high, and her laughter, like a string of small bubbles, drifted far away. In the evening, the little fish at the bottom of the sea came for help. The lid of the conch jar they used to store fish food was stuck and could not be opened no matter how hard they tried. Duangguangguang rushed over, gently clamped the edge of the conch jar with big pliers, and with a little force, the lid opened with a click. The little fish surrounded Duangguang and gave him the most delicious shrimps. The setting sun filtered through the sea, dyeing the strong red armor orange red. He sat on the square of Coral City, watching his friends play happily and chewing sweet seaweed in his mouth. Zhuangzhuang suddenly felt that his big pliers were not a terrifying weapon, but a treasure that could bring joy to everyone. It turns out that as long as you help others with your heart, even the most powerful person can become the warmest one. The days at the bottom of the sea have become increasingly lively and sweet because of the big pliers that can fix everything. The forest rescue story of little monkey Dao Dao. On the big banyan tree in the tropical rainforest lived a little monkey named Dao Dao. He has short brown fur and a long flexible tail, like a small rope. When climbing trees, it can be firmly wrapped around the branches. When jumping, it is even more agile than a bird. Everyone says Tauto is the most flying little monkey in the forest. But one early morning, Tao was hanging on a branch, munching on a banana, when suddenly she heard a woo cry coming from under the tree. It was the little squirrel, Guagu. It wanted to pick the rambutan at the top of the tree, but the branch was too thin and it couldn't climb up no matter how hard it tried. Looking at the tree full of fruits, it was so anxious that it burst into tears. Tao immediately jumped over, swinging the vine. His tail curled around the thick branch, reached out and picked a bunch of the reddest rambutan and gently threw it to Guo Guo. Eat it quickly. This string is the sweetest. Guo Guo held the rambutan in her hands and nodded straight at Tao. Her mouth was stuffed with fruit pulp, and she couldn't even say thank you clearly. In the morning, Tao was drinking water by the stream when he heard a cry for help coming from afar. He quickly climbed up the tallest sky tree and opened his eyes wide to take a look. It turned out that the antlers of the little antelope Duadwo were stuck in the vine. The more he struggled, the tighter they got entangled. He was so scared that tears were about to come out. Tao immediately swung the vine over, using both hands and feet to untie the vine entangled in Duadwa's corner, and also helped her tidy up the disheveled mane. Don't be afraid. I'll take you home. He pulled Duadwa by the ear and led her to a safe meadow. In the evening, a gentle wind suddenly blew in the forest. The mother bird noticed that her baby's nest was wobbling due to the wind and was about to fall off. When Tao saw this, he immediately gathered his friends. He was responsible for climbing to the top of the tree to fix the bird's nest the little squirrel helped carry dry. Grass and the little antelope brought soft leaves. Together, they made the bird's nest stable and firm. The mother bird thanked Tao repeatedly and brought him a shiny red fruit as a gift. When the sun set, Tao sat on a branch of the big banyan tree, holding a red fruit in her arms, surrounded by Guagu and Duadwa, and still chewing the remaining rambutan in her mouth. He wagged his long tail and suddenly felt that using his own skills to help his friends solve problems was much more enjoyable than playing alone in the tree. It turns out that being a smart and enthusiastic little monkey can fill the entire forest with laughter. Such days are sweeter than bananas and more enjoyable than swinging on a swing. Warm memories of little Flower Cat Bow's courtyard in the small courtyard of my grandma's house. There lives a little cat named Meebo. Its fur has a base color of white, dotted with small orange spots, as if a handful of orange segments have been scattered. The tip of its tail is always held high, and it waddles when it walks, being both mischievous and cute. However, Meebo is a bit capricious. He always likes to chase after butterflies and would even roll the wool balls his grandma dried all over the ground. One early morning Meebo was lying on the wall basking in the sun when suddenly she heard a chirp, chirp, chirp sound. It was the swallow nest under the eaves that had fallen, and the three little swallows landed on the ground, flapping their wings but unable to fly. They were anxiously calling for their mother. Meebo quickly jumped down. At this moment, its usually mischievous claws became very light. It carefully pushed the little swallow to the corner with its nose, blocking its passing steps. It also squatted beside it to keep watch, not allowing the big rooster to get close. Before long, the mother swallow flew back. Seeing Meebo guarding the little swallow, she quickly brought some twigs and mud to build the swallow's nest again. Meebo helped carry the dry grass that had fallen on the ground to the mother swallow. It didn't wag its tail until all the baby swallows had safely returned to their nests, and then it continued to wander around the yard. The mother swallow flew around Meebo twice, as if saying, "Thank you." In the morning, Grandma was picking vegetables in the yard when she accidentally knocked over the basket containing beans, scattering red and green beans all over the floor. When Meebo saw this, he immediately ran over and used his paws to pull out the beans that had rolled into the flower beds one by one. Although he would occasionally pull the beans further away, he still carefully helped his grandma pick them up. Grandma smiled and patted Meebo's head, saying, "Our Meebo is such a good kid. He's not naughty anymore." In the evening, the little brother of the neighbor came to play in the yard. He accidentally fell down and sat on the ground crying. Meebo hurried over, rubbed his head against the little brother's hand, and brought his favorite ball of yarn, placing it in front of the little brother. When the little brother saw the ball of yarn, he immediately stopped crying and picked it up to play with Meebo. When the moon rose, Meebo lay at her grandma's feet, her stomach filled with sweet dried fish, feeling warm in her heart. Suddenly, it felt that doing things for everyone was much more interesting than chasing butterflies or plucking balls of yarn. It turned out that being a warm-hearted little cat could earn so much affection. The days in the small courtyard also became as sweet and warm as dried fish. The sunny song of the Golden Rooster's farm. In the chicken coop of Sunshine Farm lives a yellow rooster named Gingin. Its feathers are like sun-dried ears of wheat, golden and shining. The comb on its head is as red as a small flame. Its tail is held high and dotted with a few colorful feathers. Every day before dawn, Gingin would stand on the farm fence, puffing out its chest and singing "Oh, oh, oh," waking up the sleeping farm and calling out the sun from behind the mountain. That early morning, as soon as Gingin finished singing the wake-up song, she saw the little duck Wang Wang circling around the pond. "What's up, Gingin?" jumped down and asked. Wang Wang pouted and said, "I wanted to find the soft fluff my mom used to knit sweaters, but the wind blew the fluff everywhere and I couldn't pick it up. Gingin immediately flapped her wings and used her pointed mouth to help Huang Huang carry over the down floating on the grass leaves and petals. She also gave Huang Huang the two soft feathers that had fallen from her body. This way, Mum can knit a warmer sweater. Huang Huang held the fluffy fur and giggled at Gingin. In the morning, Jinjin was taking a walk in the yard when suddenly she heard a weak Gigi sound coming from the chicken coop. It was Duadua, a newly hatched chick that had accidentally fallen out of the coop. Her leg hurt a little and she couldn't stand up. Jinjin quickly squatted down, protected Duadwo with her warm wings, and carefully combed Duadwo's messy down with her mouth. Then she gently sent Duaduo back to her mother hen. The mother hen pecked at Jinjin's paw gratefully and said, "With you around, we all feel particularly at ease." At noon, the farm owner was going to dry the corn, but the basket holding the corn broke and the corn kernels scattered all over the ground. Jinjin immediately called the ducklings and chicks to help. It used its beak to carry back the corn kernels that had rolled into the grass one by one. Its friends followed suit and picked them up. Soon, they all put the corn kernels into the new basket. The farm owner smiled and patted Jinjin's head, saying, "Jinjin is truly a little hero of the farm." In the evening, Jinjin stood on the fence looking at her farm friends. The ducklings were swimming happily in the pond, the chicks were looking for insects on the grass, and the corn was shining golden in the sun. It couldn't help singing again, and this time its voice was filled with sweet joy. Jinjin suddenly realized that waking up the farm every day was her responsibility, and helping her friends solve problems was her happiness. It turned out that being a yellow rooster could bring so much sunshine and warmth to the farm, which was truly delightful. A small forest stage with colorful mushrooms blooming everywhere in the forest after the rain. A special mushroom named Duadwo emerged under the pine tree. Its canopy seems to have been dyed by a rainbow, with red, yellow, pink and blue colors forming circles. The handle of the umbrella is tender white and still covered with shiny water droplets. From a distance, it looks like a small rainbow propped up on the grass, and even the little ants passing by can't help but stop to take a second look. One early morning, the little squirrel Guago skipped by and saw Duadwo's eyes light up. "Wow, you are so beautiful. We are going to have a singing party in the forest, but we haven't found a suitable stage yet." Duadwo shook the umbrella cover as if saying, "I can help." Guago immediately understood and hurriedly ran to gather his friends, little ladybug Dion, little snail man, Boo, and little butterfly Hong Hong all came over. Guago held pine cones and placed them around Duadwo's umbrella cover, using them as small street lamps. Dion flew to the nearby flower beds, picked dewdrops of petals and stuck them on Duadwo's umbrella handle, as if it were adorned with colorful little bells. Slowly, he would crawl to the brook, carry the shells back into the clear stream water, and sprinkle them on the grass around the mushrooms, filling the air with sweet steam. In the evening, the party was about to start, and all the little animals were gathered around Duadu. Little butterfly Hong Hong stood on the umbrella cover, singing. When her wings flapped, they cast colorful shadows on the grass, as if she were dancing in circles. Guagu and Diandian clapped their hands to the rhythm, and Mantuen also waved his antennae to keep the beat. Even the nearby rabbit grandma came. She sat on the stone beside Duadwa and said with a smile, This colourful mushroom is truly the best little stage in the forest. At the end of the party, Hong Hong gave Duwadwa the brightest petal. Guagu left a fragrant pinnacone, and Diandian gently kissed the umbrella cover. Duwadwo stood on the grass, watching the backs of her friends, feeling warm in her heart. It turned out that her colourful umbrella cover was not only beautiful, but could also become a happy little stage for everyone. In the forest at night, the moonlight falls on the colourful umbrellas, and even the stars seem to be blinking their bright eyes at this special mushroom. The deer's fluffy forest treasure hunt. In the misty forest lived a little deer named Rong. Her fur was a light brownish yellow, like a layer of sun-dried hay. On her head were two tender little horns, with the tips still tinged with morning dew. Her ears moved and she could hear sounds from far away. Everyone said Rong Rong is the smartest little guide in the forest. One early morning, Rong Rong was drinking water by the stream when suddenly he heard the anxious cry of the little squirrel Guago. "My pinnacone treasure box is missing. It's filled with my favorite hazelnuts." Rong Rong immediately pricked up her ears and ran over to follow the sound. She also carefully sniffed the smell on the ground. She smelled the pinnacone scent of guagu and the damp smell of the earth. "Follow me." Rong Rong ran with Guagu towards the hillside. Sure enough, in a pit under an old pine tree, they found the treasure box that had been washed crooked by the rain. "Thank you, Rong Rong." Guago held the treasure box and gave her the biggest hazelnut. Rong Rong was just about to take the hazelnut when she heard the sigh of the little hedgehog Kuki. Kuki was looking for a honey flower that could cure her mother's cough, but she couldn't find it all morning. Rong Rong remembered seeing this kind of flower in the ginkgo forest last autumn. She quickly ran towards the ginkgo forest with Kuki and even helped her clear the bushes in her way. When they arrived at the ginkgo forest, Kiyuki indeed found honey flowers beside the tree roots, with sweet honey still adhering to the petals. "Rong Rong, your nose and ears are just too amazing," Kiyuki said emotionally. At this moment, the sun rose high above our heads. All the friends in the forest came to thank Rong Rong. The little ant sent the shiny dewdrops, the little ladybug sent the fragrant petals, and even the rabbit grandma, who seldom went out, sent her dried carrots. In the evening, Rong Rong sat on a big rock by the stream, with gifts from her friends piled up around her and sweet hazelnuts in her mouth. She watched the setting sun dye the stream golden and suddenly felt that being able to help everyone find what they wanted was even happier than finding the tenderest grass herself. It turns out that being a little guide in the forest and using your own skills to help others can bring you a wealth of friendship. Every day in the forest is as sweet and warm as honey flowers. The sweet watermelons in the melon field are round in the melon field of my grandpa in the countryside. There grows a special watermelon called Yuan Yuan. Its body is round and plump like a small green rubber ball. It is also dressed in a dark green striped flower dress, which feels slippery. It lies on the melon vine, basking in the warm sun every day and drinking sweet dew, gradually growing a belly full of sweet juice. That early morning, Grandpa came to inspect the melon field. He patted his round belly, and the thump, thump, thump sound was particularly clear and crisp. Grandpa smiled and said, "Yuan Yuan is mature now. It must be very sweet." Just then, the little girl Lely and the little boy Young Yang from the neighboring house came to play. When they saw Yuanyum, their eyes lit up. They had been looking forward to eating the watermelons grown by their grandpa for a long time. Grandpa carried Yuanyum back to the yard, washed it clean with clear water, and cut it open with a click. The red flesh of the melon contains black seeds, and a sweet aroma wafts out at once, as if a handful of sugar has been sprinkled into the air. Lele and Young Yang stared at the watermelon, their mouths almost watering. Grandpa first cut a large piece for each of them and then several pieces. He asked Lele to give them to the grandma next door and Yang Yang to give them to the little dog or Huang at the door. Lele walked to her grandma's house with a watermelon in her hand. Grandma took a bite and said with a smile, "So sweet, sweeter than honey." Young Yang placed the watermelon in front of Huang. Huang licked it, happily wagging his tail and rubbing it against Young Yang's hand. When they returned to the yard, Grandpa cut the biggest watermelon and handed it to Yuanyuan. Of course, he pretended to do so, smiling and saying, "Yuanyuan, thank you for bringing such a sweet taste." Three little friends were sitting under the shade of a tree, eating watermelon bite by bite. The red juice of the watermelon stuck to the corners of their mouths, as if they had applied sweet lipstick. Lele licked the corner of her mouth and said, "It turns out that sharing the watermelon with everyone is sweeter than eating it alone." Yang Yang nodded and handed a washed melon seed to his grandpa, saying, "Next year we will still grow sweet watermelons and share them with more people." The setting sun dyed the yard orange red. The remaining melon rind of Yuanyuan was made into a small potted plant by his grandpa and placed on the windowsill. When Lele and Young Yang went home, they still took the melon seeds given by their grandpa. They know that this summer, because of the sweet watermelon Yuan and the joy of sharing, it has become sweeter than the flesh of a watermelon and warmer than the sunshine. The warm magic of the little flowers on the windowsill on the little girl's round desk. There was a small pot of flowers named Duadwo. Its flower pot is light blue, like a small teacup. The petals are tender pink, and the center of the flower is wrapped with a small golden ball. Every morning it quietly unfurls its petals, smiling at the sun outside the window. Even when the wind passes by the windowsill, it will carry its faint fragrance into the room. That morning, Yuan was on her way to the kindergarten with her school bag on her back. Before leaving, she squatted beside a flower pot and gently touched each petal, saying, "I'm going to learn new drawing today. I'll tell you when I come back." Duadwo shook the leaves as if saying, "Come on." But in the afternoon, it suddenly began to drizzle. Yuan forgot to close the window. The raindrops pattered dada on the petals of each flower. It quickly gathered the petals closer to the center. Fearing that the raindrops would break it, it was still waiting to hear Yuan tell the story of its new painting. In the evening, when Yuan Yuan came back from school, she saw water droplets on Duadwa's petals. She quickly closed the window and took a small towel to gently wipe the water off the petals, saying, "I'm sorry, Duadwo, I let you get wet in the rain." Duadwo didn't seem to be angry. Instead, it slowly unfurled its petals, bringing the most fragrant scent to Yuanyuan's side. It turned out that it had been hiding the fragrance of flowers all day long, just waiting for Yuanyuan to come back. A few days later, Yuanyuan's good friend Lele came to her home to play. Lele had been a bit unhappy recently because her little hamster had gone to heaven. Yuanyuan pulled Lele and squatted by the windowsill, pointing at Duadwo and saying, "Look, Duadwo blooms every day. Even when it rains, she doesn't wilt." It's as if she's saying, "Be happy." Lele stared at the tender pink petals, one by one. Suddenly, she smelled a faint fragrance, and the corners of her mouth slowly curled up. Really, its fragrance is sweet, like the smell of melon seeds that the little hamster used to gnaw on. Since then, Yuanyuan has watered Duodwo and told her stories every day, and Lele often comes to talk to Duodwo. The petals bloomed more and more brightly, and the fragrance grew stronger and stronger. Even the little birds passing by downstairs would stop on the windowsill, smell the flowers, and then fly away. Yuanyuan touched Duadua's leaves and suddenly understood. It turns out that a small pot of flowers is not just for beauty. It can also hide a warm magic, spreading happiness to everyone and quietly taking away sadness. With Duodwo on the windowsill, every day becomes as soft and sweet as petals. The farm guard song of Big Rooster Oh-Oh. In the Sunshine Farm, there lived a powerful rooster crowing oh-oh. He has a fiery red comb, like a small red hat. His feathers are golden, and his tail is held high, as if he had a colorful little fan in it. Every day before dawn, Oh-Oh would stand on the fence, puffing out its chest and shouting, "Oh, oh, oh," waking up the sun and all the farm friends. That early morning, as soon as Oh-Oh finished singing the wake-up song, she saw the little ducks anxiously circling around the pond. "What's up?" Oh-Oh jumped down and asked. Little duck Wang Wang whispered, "Our little duckweed has been blown to the opposite bank by the wind. We dare not swim over ... double quotes. Oh-oh flapped her wings and her eyes lit up. "I'll help you." He flew to the opposite bank, picked up the duckweed with his pointed mouth, and sent it back to the ducklings one trip after another. He didn't stop to catch his breath until all the ducklings had eaten the sweet duckweed. In the morning, Oh-Oh was taking a walk in the yard when suddenly she heard a weak gee-gee sound coming from the chicken coop. It was Duat, a newly hatched chick that had accidentally fallen out of the coop and couldn't find its mother. Ubu quickly squatted down, protected Duodwo with her warm wings, and slowly brought her back to the mother hen. The mother chicken pecked at Ubu's claws gratefully and said, "Thank you so much. I feel so at ease with you around." In the evening, all the farm friends gathered beside the barn. The little ducks brought soft water plants to Wowo. The chicks chirped around him. Even the little cat, which was usually a little afraid of him, brought a dried small fish. Oo stood in the middle, puffed out her chest, and sang a song. This time her singing was filled with sweet joy. He suddenly realized that waking up everyone every day was his responsibility, and helping his friends solve problems was his joy. It turned out that being a big rooster guarding the farm was so blissful. The big snail was slowly offering a little help in the forest. Among the mushrooms in the forest lived a big snail, and everyone called him Slow. His shell is a circle larger than that of other snails, like a small brown pot lid with spiral patterns on it. When he climbs up, it leaves shiny silver lines. Although he walks slowly, he can always reach the place he wants to go steadily each time. One early morning, Slow was lying on a dandelion basking in the sun when suddenly she heard a ouch sound. It was little ladybug Dion. She wanted to give the dewdrops she had picked to her sick butterfly grandma, but the dewdrops were in a small dish of leaves and swayed as she ran, about to spill out. He crawled over slowly and said softly, "Put the small dish on my shell. I can walk steadily." Dion carefully placed the small leaf dish on the snail shell. Sure enough, it didn't shake at all. Then she walked slowly towards Grandma Butterfly's home. When passing by the stream, they saw the little ant leader spinning round anxiously. The ants were trying to carry a grain of wheat back to the ant nest, but the stream blocked the way. The grain was too heavy for the leaf bridge to support. Slowly, he immediately climbed into the stream, using the big shell as a small boat, allowing the ants to sit on the shell with the grains of wheat in their arms. He swam slowly across the stream and safely delivered the grains of wheat to the opposite bank. "Thank you. Slow down." The ants surrounded him and dropped the sweetest dewdrops on his shell. When they arrived at Grandma Butterfly's home, Dion handed the dewdrop to her grandma. Grandma smiled and said, "Although Slow and Steady walk slowly, they are the most reliable little helpers." When the sun was setting in the west, I walked home slowly. There were still dewdrops sent by ants and petals left on my shell. My heart felt warm. He crawled slowly and suddenly felt that it didn't matter if he walked slowly. As long as he could help his companions, it was worth spending as much time as possible. It turns out that the slowness of the big snail hides great tenderness. The friends in the forest have all quietly regarded slowness as the most trustworthy good friend. Big-mouthed goldfish Bubbles' pond food diary in the pond at the entrance of the village. There lives a special goldfish called Bobo. His body is golden and his tail is like a floating orange-red silk ribbon. The most distinctive feature is his mouth. It is a circle larger than that of other goldfish. With just a light opening, it can hold many small shrimps. His friends always laugh and say, "Bubbles' mouth is like a little rice spoon in the pond." That early morning, Bobo was swimming around in the pond when suddenly she heard a gurgling sound. It was the newly moved little carp, Luo. She hadn't found a familiar place to forage yet, and her stomach was growling with hunger. Bubble swam over quickly, opened its big mouth, and scooped out a handful of shiny little shrimps from under the water plants. Eat quickly. This is the freshest food in the pond. Lululu pecked at the little shrimp, her eyes shining brightly. Bubble, your big mouth is so amazing. It's like you can do magic. Bubble smiled and continued swimming. When passing through the lotus leaf area, he saw the little crab Juangguang holding up his empty pincers and sighing. He wanted to catch the snails hidden under the lotus leaf roots, but the snail shells were too slippery and always slipped through his pincers. Bubble immediately swam under the lotus leaf, opened its big mouth and took a gentle sniff, sucking out the snail. It carefully placed it in front of Guangzhuang and said, "Eat slowly. Don't pinch your claws." At noon, under the willow tree by the pond, the cry of the little duck Wang Huang came. My little fish dried up in the water and sank into the crevices of the rocks. Bubble swam over quickly, crawled into the crevice of the stone, and pushed the dried fish out with its big mouth. Wang Wang, holding a dried small fish in his mouth, quacked at Bao Bao. Bao Bao, you are truly a great hero in the pond. The setting sun dyed the pond an orange-red. Bobo lay under a large lotus leaf, his belly filled with sweet aquatic plants. Luo brought a round little pebble, Juangguang brought a delicious snail, and Wangguang also shared half a dried small fish. While eating, Bao Bao wagged his tail. Suddenly, he felt that his big mouth was not something strange, but a great ability to help his friends find delicious food. It turns out that every special place has a great use, the days in the pond, because they can help everyone become fresher than small shrimps and sweeter than aquatic plants. Pink sweet pearls in the vineyards on the outskirts. There are bunches of purple and green grapes hanging everywhere. Only in the farthest corner of the grape trellis is there a special bunch of grapes. Its skin is a light pink, as if wrapped in a layer of peach blossom honey. When the sunlight shines, each one sparkles with a gentle light, like a string of pink sweet pearls hanging on the vine. One early morning, the little squirrel Guago came to the vineyard to look for nuts and was suddenly attracted by the pink color in the corner. It stood on tiptoe, clinging to the grape trellis, and its eyes suddenly lit up. Wow, I've never seen such beautiful grapes. Just as I was about to take a bite, I remembered that the little rabbit next door, Rongrong, loved sweet grapes the most. So I held back my saliva, gently held the grape bunch in my arms, and ran towards Rongrong's home. Rongrong saw the pink grapes and her ears pricked up. What a sweet fragrance! But it touched a bunch of grapes and shook its head, saying, "Such beautiful grapes should be tasted by everyone." So the two friends carried the bunch of grapes and went to look for the little hedgehog. Kuki's back could hold many things, which was just right to safely deliver the grapes to the square. When the three little animals came to the square, the little bee buzzed and the little butterfly was happy. Guogo carefully picked a pink grape and handed it to Wang Wang, saying, "Taste it first. You help the vineyard gather honey. You should be the first to eat." Buzzing took a bite, his eyes curved into crescent moons. sweeter than nectar. Everyone took one after another. The sweetness of the pink grapes spread in their mouths, and everyone's face lit up with smiles. Finally, there was only one grape left. Goago gave it to his grandpa, who was looking after the vineyard. "Grandpa, this is the sweetest grape in the vineyard. Here you go." Grandpa took the grapes and patted Guago's head with a smile, saying, "The sweetest thing is that you are willing to share." Under the setting sun, the little animals were sitting beside the grape trellis. With the sweet taste of pink grapes still lingering in their mouths. Looking at the gradually darkening sky, they suddenly felt it turns out that sharing beautiful things with everyone, happiness will grow like a grapevine, long and sweet, even with a sweet fragrance wafting in the wind. The gentle little secret of the angry crab Juangguang. In the crevice of the rocks by the seaside lived a crab named Juangguang. He has a pair of big red pincers, and his temper is even more irritable than waves. If a little shrimp accidentally rubs against his shell, he will raise the pincers and make a click sound. The waves knocked his shell toy off course. He could stare at the sea for a long time. Everyone secretly called him Angry Zhuangguozhuang. That morning, Zhuangguozhuang was using pliers to pick up small stones to build a fence for his home. Suddenly, a huge wave came crashing in, washing the shell of the little hermit crab Dodo beside it into the deep water area. Dudu was so anxious that she kept spinning around, her little paws unable to reach the water surface, and tears were about to fall. Duongushuang was about to lose his temper. The big waves had also messed up his fence. But seeing Dodo's pitiful look, he suddenly put down his pliers and jumped into the water with a plop. His big pincers were particularly powerful in the water. Soon he caught Dodo's shell and slowly swam back to the shore. Here you. Zhuangguang handed the shell to Dodo, his face a little red and his voice lower than usual. Dudu held the shell and shouted happily, "Zhuangguang, you're not fierce at all." At this moment, the little turtle swam over leisurely and said anxiously, "My shell hairpin has fallen into a crevice of the rock and I can't untake it out." Duongzhuang immediately crawled over, carefully pushed aside the stone with big pliers, gently pulled out the hairpin and pinned it on Yoayu's head. Don't lose it." When the sun was setting in the west, Duongshuang sat on the reef, and Dodo and Yoayu brought him sweet seaweed. Duongshuang was chewing seaweed when he suddenly felt that it was warmer in his heart to help his friends than to hold up pliers and lose his temper. He shook his big pliers and decided to be less angry and help everyone more in the future. It turns out that a gentle appearance is more popular than when one is angry. Red Butterfly Hong Hong's forest-colored diary in the forest of spring. There lives a special butterfly named Hong Hong. Her wings were as red as the morning glow, shining brightly, with a faint golden border around the edges. When she flew, her wings flapped gently, like a red maple leaf that could fly. Even Grandpa's son smiled and said, wherever Hong Hong flew, everything became brighter. One early morning Hong Hong was sucking nectar on the petals when suddenly she saw the little ant Dodo squatting by the roadside sighing. Dudu wanted to find the first violet of spring, but the forest was so vast that it searched for a long time but couldn't find it. Hong Hong immediately flapped her red wings. "I'll take you there. I saw it yesterday. It was so beautiful." She flew in front of Dodo, her red wings like small flags guiding the way. In no time, she led Dodo to a patch of violets. Dudu looked at the purple little flower and happily turned around. "Hong Hong, your red wings in the flower bed are like a flying flower." At noon, Hong Hong flew to the stream and saw the little squirrel Guagu worrying about the water. Guagu wanted to send a spring leaf to a friend far away, but she didn't know which kind of leaf was the most beautiful. Hong Hong hurriedly flew into the woods and found a maple leaf still covered with dewdrops, even though it was spring. There was a maple leaf that had turned red early. She gently grabbed it with her paws and gave it to Guagu. "This leaf is as red as my wings. My friend will surely like it." Guagu held the maple leaf in her hands and ran to the post office immediately. In the evening, all the friends in the forest gathered on the grassland. Hong Hong told everyone about the scenery she had seen today: golden dandelions, a blue stream and purple violets. Little ladybug Dion. Dion also drew Hong Hong's story on the leaves, making a color diary. Hong Hong flapped her red wings, her heart filled with sweetness. It turned out that discovering beauty with one's own eyes and then sharing it with everyone was even more delightful than drinking the sweetest nectar. When the sun set, Hong Hong's red wings were dyed even brighter by the afterglow. She knew that tomorrow she would still take her friends to look for lotus flowers in summer, ginkgo trees in autumn, and plum blossoms in winter. It turns out that a tiny red butterfly can also become a color guide in the forest, allowing the beauty of each season to settle in everyone's heart. The warm red sun evokes a little promise in the forest every morning. The warm red sun climbs up to the sky on time. Its glow is like a handful of golden red crushed sugar, dyeing the clouds pink and making the grassland soft. As soon as the friends in the forest see it, they know a new day has begun. That morning, as soon as Nuanyuan showed half of her face, she found the little squirrel, Guagu, squatting at the tree hole crying. It had rained last night, and the pinnacone he had dried on the branch was all wet and could used for breakfast. Nuanyuan quickly turned the light up more gently, allowing the sunlight to gently wrap around the pine cones, as if they were covered with a warm little quilt. In no time, the water droplets on the pine cones vanished, still carrying a faint fragrance of the sun. Guagu held a pine cone in her hands and shouted to the sky, "Thank you, Nuanyuan. Your sunshine is sweeter than honey." In the morning, Nuanyuan saw the little snail slowly lying on the stone, worried. He wanted to go to the other side to find his good friend, but the dew had wet the small bridge, making it slippery, and he dared not walk. Nuanyuan immediately focused her light on the small bridge, making the stone slabs warm and cozy. Even the grass in the crevices of the stones straightened up. Walking slowly across the warm little bridge, I crossed the river steadily and waved my antennae at the sun. Nuan, Nuan, your sunlight is as comfortable as a little carpet. At noon, a few dark clouds suddenly drifted in, covering Nuan, Nuan. Little duck Huang Huang was shivering with cold in the pond, and the wings of little ladybug Diandian were also covered with moisture and couldn't fly. Noanyuan quickly pushed aside the dark clouds with all her might and spread a brighter light over the forest. The water in the pond became warmer, and Dion Dion's wings dried up in the sun. Everyone raised their heads and smiled sweetly at the red sun. In the evening, Nuanyuan was about to go home. He dyed the last ray of light orange-red and gave it to his friends in the forest. Guogo hid the light in the tree hole and said she wanted to be a little lantern at night. Huang Huang spread his light over the pond and said he would use it as a blanket for the little fish. Nuan Nuan smiled and said, "I'll come again tomorrow and bring everyone new sunshine." When the moon rose, the forest still lingered with a warm scent. The little animals knew that early tomorrow morning the warm, red sun would show up on time with its golden red glow. It turned out that the sun not only shone, but was also the warmest friend in the forest, making every day sweet and warm. The sweet and wonderful journey of the red heart lollipop in the candy store at the street corner. There lies a special red heart lollipop. Its candy body is a shiny pink color with a round red heart embedded in the middle. The plastic stick is wrapped with silver candy wrappers. When the sunlight shines on it, it looks like a layer of sweet starlight is scattered. Every day it looks forward to meeting a child who likes it. That morning, little girl Lele walked into the store holding the coin given by her mother and immediately saw this red heart lollipop. "I want this." Lele was holding a lollipop, her eyes shining brightly. The boss smiled and helped her peel off the candy wrapper. The sweet aroma of strawberries immediately wafted out. Lele took a small bite and the corners of her mouth immediately curled up. It was even sweeter than the strawberry jam her mother made. Lele, holding a lollipop, hopped and skipped to the park to look for her good friend Duadua. Just as I reached the slide, I saw Duadua sitting on the bench rubbing her eyes. It turned out that Duadua's doll had accidentally fallen into the grass and got stained with mud. Lely hurried over and held the red heart lollipop to Duadua's lips, saying, "Have a taste. After eating the sweet one, you won't feel sad anymore." Duadua took a bite. The taste of strawberries spread in her mouth and her tears immediately stopped. At this moment, Lale's eyes lit up. He carefully picked off the small mud spots on the doll with the plastic stick of the lollipop and then pulled Duodwo to the lake, gently wiping it clean with clear water. Soon the doll became clean again. Two little girls were sitting on a bench, sharing red heart lollipops bite by bite. The sweet fragrance wafted into the flower bed beside them. Even butterflies perched beside them, as if they also wanted to taste the sweetness. Lely licked the candy residue at the corner of her mouth and said with a smile, "So sharing sweet candy with friends is even sweeter than eating it alone." When the sun was about to set, only a small piece of the red heart lollipop remained. But it was unsad at all. It saw the smiling faces of Lele and Duardro and heard their sweet laughter, knowing that it had sent sweetness to where it was most needed. It turns out that a small lollipop not only brings sweetness, but also helps children get rid of sadness and make happiness more and more. The Golden Turtle's golden sunshine little task. Among the dandelion bushes in the forest lived a scarab beetle named Jin. Its shell is like it's sprinkled with a layer of broken gold. When the sunlight shines on it, it sparkles. When it flies, its wings make a soft buzzing sound, as if it's carrying a little sun through the forest. People always say seeing Jinjin is like seeing a sunny day. But one early morning, Jinfin was lying on the sunflower basking in the sun when suddenly she heard a woo-woo cry. It was the little ant Duadbu. It was trying to carry a grain of wheat that was larger than itself home, but the grain was too heavy and rolled deep into the grass after just 2 steps and couldn't be pushed no matter how hard it was. Jinjin hurriedly flew over, gently hooked the grain of wheat with her paws, flapped her wings, and carried the grain to Duardwa's doorstep. Catch it quickly. Duardwa held a grain of wheat in her arms and happily turned around. Jinjin, your shell is so shiny, just like a glowing little spaceship. Jinjin smiled and continued flying. When passing by the mushroom house, she saw the little ladybug Dion squatting at the door, worried. It wanted to pick a dewdrop's dandelion for its sick grandma, but the dandelion was growing on a high earthen slope, and Dion couldn't climb up. Jinjin immediately landed on the dandelion, shielded it from the wind with its shell, carefully picked the dewy dandelion and handed it to Dion. Dion, hurry up and take it to Grandma. The dew hasn't dried yet. At noon, a few dark clouds suddenly drifted into the forest. Little squirrel Guago shouted anxiously, "My pine cones are drying on the stones and are going to get wet from the rain." Jinjin quickly gathered her friends. With its shiny shell, it reflected the sunlight and reminded everyone to come and help. In no time, the pine cones were moved into Guago's tree hole. The rain didn't fall, and the sun shone back into the forest. Guaguo gave Jinjin the most fragrant pino cone, and Dion also brought sweet nectar. Jinjin lay on the sunflower, eating pine cones while looking at the smiling faces of her friends. Suddenly, she felt that her little wings and shiny shells, though unremarkable, could help everyone with their tasks. It turns out that even the tiny scarab beetle can become a sunshine helper in the forest, making every day shine brightly. At Little Yellow Chicken Rongrong's farm, adventure in the chicken coop of the farm, lived a little yellow chicken named Rongrong. It is covered all over with golden down, like a running little sun. Its pointed little beak always pecks at the small insects on the ground. When it runs, its short legs roll around very fast. Even its mother smiles and says, "Our Rongrong is the most energetic little one." That morning, as soon as the sun warmed the haystack, Rongrong hopped out of the chicken coop. It had just found a chubby little bug in the yard when it suddenly heard a weak Gigi sound. It was the little duck of the duck mother next door, which had accidentally fallen into a wooden basin filled with water. Its short legs were flapping around, and it couldn't climb up no matter how hard it tried. Rong Rong quickly put down the little bug and walked around the wooden basin twice. Suddenly, she saw a long straw beside it. It bit one end of the straw with its mouth and gently placed the other end in front of the little duck. "Grab it, quickly. I'll pull you up." The little duck quickly bit the straw. Rong Rong pulled hard and finally managed to pull the little duck back to the shore. When the mother duck arrived, the ducklings were hiding beside Rong Rong to keep warm. Mother duck gave Rong Rong a sweet corn kernel and said, "Thank you, Rong Rong. You are such a brave little helper." Rong Rong was holding a corn kernel in her mouth and was just about to share it with her friends when she saw the little chicken, Duo worrying. Duo could unfind her mother and was so anxious that she was almost crying. Rong Rong immediately took Duo and followed the path that the mother chicken often took to search. Finally, they found the mother chicken looking for bugs in the vegetable garden. The mother chicken stroked Rong Rong's head and said with a smile, "Rong Rong has grown up and can help others now." In the evening, Rong Rong lay on the haystack, chewing sweet corn kernels in her mouth, surrounded by little ducks and Duo. It gazed at the sunset glow on the horizon, feeling warm in its heart. It turned out that helping its companions solve problems was even more delightful than finding the fattest bugs. Every day on the farm was filled with sweet little surprises. The slow and pleasant time of the little blue-shelled turtle in the grass by the pond lived a very special little turtle called Mung Mung. His shell is not the common dark green, but a light blue that looks like the blue sky crushed and smeared on. There are also circles of light grey patterns on the shell, like ripples in a pond. When he gets up, the shell will gently sway, as if he is walking with a small piece of blue sky on his back. That morning, I slowly carried my blue shell to the pond to look for duckweed to eat. Just as I climbed over a big rock, I heard a Gigi sound. It was the chirping of a little sparrow. Its feet were entangled by grass and vines, and it landed on the ground and couldn't fly up. Slowly, he quickly stopped and slowly walked around to Choo Choo's side. He gently rubbed his shell against the grass and vines, then extended his little paws and carefully untied the vines wrapped around Choo Choo's feet, bit by bit. "Thank you so much. Take your time." Shoo Shoo flapped its wings and flew up, slowly carrying a piece of the tenderest duckweed. "This is for you to eat. It's so sweet." Slowly smiling, she took the duck. Just as she took a bite, she saw the little crab Zhuang running over with her small pincers in hand. "Slowly, my shell toy has fallen into the pond. Can you help me get it out? I'm afraid the water is too deep." Nodding slowly, he slowly climbed into the pond. His blue shell was like a tiny blue moon in the water. Soon he found the shell toy at the bottom of the water, gently held it in his mouth, and slowly swam back to the shore. Zhuang held the shell and happily turned it around. slowly. Your blue shell looks so beautiful in the water, as if it could glow. When the sun was almost overhead, I slowly sat by the pond, eating duckweed while watching Choo Choo fly in the sky and Zhuang Shuang play with shells nearby, although he crawled slowly. His heart was warm. It turned out that walking slowly and helping his companions slowly could also bring so many happy things. Just like his blue shell, in the slow passage of time, there were so many little beauties hidden. The plump forest treasure of the old wine jar deep in the forest, beside a small wooden house, there was an old wine jar which everyone called Pang Pang. Its belly is round and plump, with light blue and white patterns on its body. The mouth of the altar is ground smooth and feels warm to the touch. Since the owner of the wooden house left, Pang Pang has quietly stayed under the tree and become a little ornament in the forest. That early morning, the little squirrel Guago came running over with a full handful of pine cones in her arms. Stamping her feet in anxiety, it had just rained, and pine cones would get moldy if they got damp, but its tree hole had not yet dried up. Guogu saw Pang Pang, and her eyes lit up. She carefully put the pine cones into the jar and said, "Pang Pang, could you help me store the pine cones for a while?" Chubby stood steadily as if saying, "Don't worry, the pine cone lay in its belly, dry and safe." At noon, the little ants passed by carrying breadcrumbs larger than themselves. Suddenly, a gentle breeze blew, and the breadcrumbs seemed about to be blown away. The leading ant captain quickly directed everyone to carry the breadcrumbs into the plump jar. The chubby belly was just enough to block the wind, and the breadcrumbs lay steadily beside the pine cones, as if they had found Shaoxun's home. In the evening, it began to drizzle. Little ladybugs flapped their wet wings and flew over. Seeing the plump mouth of the jar, they quickly flew in to take shelter from the rain. It lay on the pine cone, watching the raindrops outside the jar. Suddenly, it noticed a small petal stuck to the plump blue and white porcelain. It gently wiped it off with its little paws and said, "I'll make it clean for you." When the rain stopped, Guogo and the ants came to get the treasure. Seeing Dion in the jar, they all greeted each other with smiles. Guogo placed the most fragrant pinnacone at the mouth of the jar. The ants brought in some shiny pebbles, and Diandian stuck a petal with dewdrops beside the blue and white flowers. The moonlight fell upon Pang Pang, the aroma of pinnacone and the sweetness of breadcrumbs still lingered in its belly, and the small gift at the mouth of the jar was shining. Pang Pang stood quietly and suddenly felt that there was no need to hold wine. Helping the forest friends protect their treasures was even more delightful than filling them with fine wine. He had also become an indispensable treasure manager in the forest. The little frog warrior in a pond surrounded by reed marshes, there lived a little frog. Everyone called him the Little Prince, not because he had a crown, but because he always wore a bright green little coat. His belly was as white as snow, and when he jumped, his movements were nimble. He also always loved to help his friends solve problems. Everyone thought he was like a brave little prince. One early morning, the little prince was practicing jumping on a lotus leaf when suddenly he heard a plop. It was a little carp. She had accidentally bumped into the small net left by a fisherman, and her tail got entangled in the net wire. The more she struggled, the tighter it got, so anxious that bubbles were bubbling up. The little prince quickly jumped over and carefully pecked at the net wire with his sharp mouth. When he got tired of pecking, he gently pulled it with his front paws. It took him quite a while to finally peck out a small hole in the net wire, allowing Luo to come out. "Thank you, little prince." Lulaluo wags her tail and gives him the most tender aquatic plant as a gift. In the morning, the little prince was basking in the sun by the shore when he saw the little crab, strong and worried, holding up a broken corner of its pincers. He wanted to bring his mother a smooth pebble as a gift, but the stone was too heavy and the broken pincers couldn't be used. But the little prince's eyes lit up. He jumped onto the stone and pushed hard with his hind legs, helping Zhuangshuang push the stone to the hole of the crab mother's mouth. Mother Crab smiled and said, "The little prince is such a warm-hearted and good child. He's even better than a real prince." In the evening, a gentle breeze suddenly blew in the pond, wetting the wings of the little ladybug. She landed on a lotus leaf and couldn't fly home. The little prince quickly found a dried lotus leaf, let Dion lie on it, and pushed the leaf himself as if rowing a small boat, sending Dion back to the grass by the shore. Before leaving, Dion stuck a petal with dewdrops on the little prince's back and said, "This is your medal." When the moon rose, the little prince sat on the biggest lotus leaf, surrounded by Lolua, Zhuangguang, and Diandian, sharing water plants, pebbles, and sweet berries. The little prince licked the sweet juice at the corner of his mouth and suddenly felt that it didn't matter at all whether he had a crown or not. As long as he helped others with his heart, he could become the best prince in everyone's heart. The croaking and laughter of frogs in the pond mingled together. Even the stars couldn't help blinking their eyes, as if they were clapping for this kind little frog warrior. A postcard of little yellow leaves in the three-leaf grass of the garden lived a little yellow snail called Wow. Its shell is a warm lemon yellow, like a small round cake wrapped around it. There are also light brown spiral patterns on the shell. Wherever it climbs, it leaves shiny silver lines. People always say the paths it has walked are all like scattered stars. That early morning, Wow, carrying a yellow shell on her back, wanted to send a dewy clover to the little ladybug Dion living beside the rose bushes. It crawled and crawled slowly. Just as it crossed the stone-paved road, it saw the little ant carrying a grain of rice home. But the grain was too heavy and accidentally rolled into a crevice of the stone. Woob quickly stopped and used her soft body to press against the grain of rice, pushing it out bit by bit. "Thank you, Woob." The little ants surrounded it and gave it the sweetest dewdrops as gifts. I kept climbing steadily and finally reached the rose bushes, but I didn't see any dots. The dandelion beside said, Dion has gone to the river to look for you." It wants to show you the newly picked shells. Wow was a little anxious. It knew that Dion Dion was afraid of the dark. If it couldn't see Dion Dion before it got dark, Dion Dion would be sad. Woo quickened her pace, crawled over the green grass and the petals, and tightly pressed the clover against its shell. When it was almost by the river, it saw Dion Dion sitting on a stone, lost in thought. Tap! Wow! Shouted softly. Dion Dion turned around and saw it, jumping up immediately. Wow, you're finally here. Wow handed the dewy clover to Dion Dion and said, "This is a postcard for you. It has the scent of the early morning on it." When the sun was setting in the west, two little friends were sitting by the river. Diandian showed Wow shells, and Wow told Diandian stories about their journey. Although Wow crawled slowly, her heart was sweet. It turned out that walking slowly could also catch up with the promise. In the slow passage of time, there was the most tender little happiness hidden. Xiao Huangjong, Xiaoba's tentacle magic. In the blue ocean floor lived a yellow octopus, which everyone called Little 8. His 8 tentacles are like they are coated with a layer of honey, feeling soft to the touch. Each tentacle has a round little suction cup. When swimming, the tentacles gently swing like small ribbons floating in the water. But Little 8 always feels that there are too many tentacles. When sorting out shells, he might accidentally knock them over, and when hiding dried fish, they would get tangled up. One early morning, Xiaoba was picking up colorful shells by the coral bush when she suddenly heard a ouch. It was little seahorse Yoey. Her tail was entangled in water plants and she could shake it off no matter how hard she tried. She was so anxious that bubbles were bubbling up. Xiaoba swam over quickly, stretched out 2 tentacles, gently untangled the water plants around Yoayu's tail, and used another tentacle to help her straighten the crooked little bow. "Thank you, Little 8. Yoayu wagged her tail in gratitude. Just as I finished speaking, a strong cry of a little crab came from afar. "My shell house has been washed away by the waves. All the small stones inside are in a mess." Zhao Ba immediately swam over, and all 8 tentacles joined in. 2 held onto the shell to steady himself. 3 carefully placed the small stones back in their original positions, and the other 3 helped Zhuangzhuang pick up the fallen dried fish. In no time, the shell house stood firmly, as if it had never been washed over. Zhuangguang held up the small shell and said, "Little Ba, your tentacles are so powerful. They seem to have magic." Zhao Ba shook his tentacles and suddenly felt that they weren't troublesome at all. At this moment, the clownfish swam over and invited Little 8 to play the bubble catch game together. His 8 tentacles could catch several bubbles at the same time and even stack the bubbles into a small castle, making him the most powerful bubble little champion in the ocean. The setting sun shone into the ocean floor. Little 8 swung 8 yellow tentacles and swam with his friends. His heart was filled with sweetness, so his tentacles were onto trouble but a little magic that could help everyone. The laughter from the bottom of the sea, accompanied by the bang-bang sound of bubbles, gently drifted far away. Even the passing big whales couldn't help but stop and listen to this lively sound with a smile. The little green snake's tender and heartwarming promise. In the bushes of the forest lived a little green snake named Mian Mian. Her body was like wrapped in a layer of tender green silk ribbon with faint leaf patterns on it. When she got up, she moved gently and never touched the flowers or grass. Even the little ants passing by said, "My Yan Mian is the most tender little snake." One early morning, my Yan Mian was lying on a branch basking in the sun when suddenly she heard a woo cry. It was the little squirrel Guogo. His pinnacone had fallen into a deep tree hole and his paws couldn't reach it. He was so anxious that he kept stamping his feet. My Yan Mian quickly climbed down from the branch and said softly, "Don't panic. I'll help you." She slowly crawled into the tree hole, wrapped her soft body around the pinnacone, and carefully pulled it out. Guogu, holding a pinnacone, jumped up happily and said, "Thank you, my own Mian. I was afraid of you before, but you are so nice." Mayan Mian smiled and shook her head. Just as she was about to continue basking in the sun, she saw little hedgehog Kuki squatting by the roadside sighing. Kuki wanted to carry the apple home, but the apple was too round and kept rolling off her back. Mayan Mian's eyes lit up. She walked around the apple, gently wrapped it with her body, and slowly brought it to Kiwi's door. "This way it won't fall." Kuki hurriedly invited Mian to have an apple. Mian shook her head and said, "I like sweet berries. Next time I'll take you to pick them." When the sun was about to set, Guoguo and Kyuki came to Mian, holding pine cones and berries in their hands. "Let's share them together." Three little friends were sitting by the bushes, taking one bite after another, enjoying their meal so much. Mayan Mian lay on the soft grass, feeling warm in her heart. It turns out that as long as you treat others with your heart, you can gain many good friends. The days in the forest have also become sweet. The dance of the little swans on the lake surface among the reeds by the lake lived a little swan named Duarduo. Her feathers were like a layer of fragmented moonlight, and her long neck was curved. But Duarduo was always a little shy. Every time her friends sang on the lake, she would hide behind the reeds, not daring to show her figure. That early morning, the sunlight made the lake surface sparkle. The little duck quacked over and shouted to Duarduo, "Come quickly. The lake water is so warm today. Let's have a swimming competition together." Duarduo shrank her neck and whispered, I'm not good at swimming." Hardly had the words been spoken when a gust of wind blew, swaying the reeds beside it. The little duck lost its balance and almost fell into the water. Duarduo quickly stretched her neck and gently held the little duck with her wings. "Be careful." After the little duck stood firm, it said with a smile, "Duarduo, your wings are so strong." At this moment, from under the willow tree by the lake, came the shout of the little squirrel Guogo. "My pinnacone has fallen into the lake." Duarduo. swam over immediately, carefully scooped the pinnacone out of the water with her pointed mouth and placed it in front of Guagu. Guagu held a pinnacone, her eyes shining brightly. "Thank you, Duodbu, you swim so fast, like a little speedboat." Duodwo was stunned for a moment, then lowered her head to look at her own reflection in the lake, the sunlight shining on her feathers, giving off a gentle glow. Suddenly, she gathered her courage, gently flapped her wings, and began to swim on the lake. The little duck followed her, quacking and singing. Guagu sat by the shore, clapping her little paws to cheer her on. The wind brushed over the lake surface, creating ripples, layer upon layer. The shadows gently swayed in the water, as if dancing a beautiful dance. She finally understood. She was not bad at all. Just stand up bravely, and you can become the brightest little swan. The buzzing nectar promise of the little bee in the sunflower bush of the garden. There lives a tiny bee buzzing. Its body is only as big as a fingernail. Its yellow and black fur looks like it has been sprinkled with a layer of gold powder. When its wings flap, they make a soft buzzing sound. Every time it collects honey, it fills the honey sacs on its hind legs up, as if it has two small honey jars hanging on it. That early morning, as soon as the sun had warmed the petals, Wang Wang carried his little honey pot out. It landed on a sunflower and was busy absorbing the sweet nectar when suddenly it heard a woo-woo cry. It was the little butterfly Lily. Its wings were wet by dewdrops and stuck to the dandelion fluff, and it couldn't break free no matter how hard it tried. Wang Wang immediately stopped collecting honey, flew around the dandelion twice, then gently plucked off the fluff, stuck to its wings with its little paws, and flapped its wings to dry the moisture for Lele. "Thank you, Wang." Lails flapped her wings and flew up, even pointing at the rose bushes not far away for Wang Wang. The nectar there is sweeter. It buzzed to the rose bushes and indeed smelled a strong fragrance of flowers. In no time, it was filled with honey. When passing by the ants' home, it saw the ants carrying breadcrumbs larger than itself, sweating profusely. Buzzing quickly fell, squeezing out a small drop of nectar from the honey sac and dropping it onto a leaf. "Taste this quickly, replenish your strength." The ants surrounded the nectar and ate happily. When the sun was about to set, Buzzing, carrying a full sack of honey, flew back to the beehive. The queen bee tasted the honey it had collected and said with a smile, "The honey collected by Weng Weng is the sweetest." I buzzed my antennae, my heart sweeter than honey. It turns out that not only can gathering honey bring happiness, but helping friends solve problems can also bring double the sweetness. The soft, late-night secret of the little pillow by the bedside of the little girl Lele. There is a special little pillow called Ruin Ruin. Its coat is light pink with little clouds embroidered on it and soft cotton stuffed inside. Holding it in your arms is like holding a warm ball of sunshine. Lele holds it every night when she goes to sleep. That night, Lele lay in bed, her eyes shining brightly, and she just couldn't fall asleep. She poked Soft's belly and whispered, "Soft, soft, I drew a picture at kindergarten today, but the teacher didn't see it. I'm a bit sad." It seemed that Ruan understood. She gently swayed and handed herself to Lily, as if saying, "I saw it. It must be very nice." Lele held Ruan and continued, "Also, I want to bring some cookies for Duaduo to share tomorrow, but Mum said they should be kept for entertaining guests. Double quotes as she spoke. Her voice grew fainter and fainter, and her tears accidentally dropped onto the soft clouds. Ruan quickly caught her tears with her coat. The cotton absorbed the wet marks, as if secretly hiding Lele's sadness as well. Just then, the moonlight outside the window shone through the crack of the curtain and fell upon Ruan. Lele suddenly felt that the pillow in her arms seemed to have become warmer. She recalled the joy of playing on the slide with Duodro during the day, and also remembered her mother's promise to take her to the park on the weekend. The corners of her mouth gradually curled up. "Actually, it's not that sad," Lily rubbed against Ruan. "Thank you for listening to me, Ruan." Soon, Lele's breathing became gentle. She held Ruan and had a sweet dream in the dream. Her painting was hung on the wall of the kindergarten, and Duodwa was smiling as she ate the small cookies she shared. And Ruan lay quietly beside Lely, gently wrapping her little secrets and joys in her cloud-like coat, being her most loyal late-night companion. It turns out that a pillow is not only a companion for sleeping, but also a gentle little nest that can hold all your little moods. The little spider who loves weaving webs under a big tree lived a little spider. Its favorite thing every day is to patiently weave one net after another. The little bird flew over and asked curiously, "Little spider, why do you weave webs every day?" The little spider replied with a smile, "Because I want the most beautiful and the strongest web." However, whenever a strong wind blows, the net is blown through. The raindrops fell and the net was washed away again. The little spider kept mending and starting a new time and again. Finally, on a sunny morning, a crystal clear net was hung among the branches. The dewdrops sparkled on it, just like a small crystal palace. All the friends were amazed. "Wow, the little spider is really amazing," the little spider said happily. "As long as you persist, you can weave the most beautiful dream, allegorical, patience and perseverance. Just like the silk of a little spider can gradually weave the most beautiful outcome." The little spider who loves weaving webs under a big tree lived a little spider. Its favorite thing every day is to patiently weave one net after another. The little bird flew over and asked curiously, "Little spider, why do you weave webs every day?" The little spider replied with a smile, "Because I want the most beautiful and the strongest web." However, whenever a strong wind blows, the net is blown through. The raindrops fell and the net was washed away again. The little spider kept mending and starting a new time and again. Finally, on a sunny morning, a crystal clear net was hung among the branches. The little guardian of the aster flower on the grassland at the edge of the forest. There is a patch of purple flowers in full bloom. The petals are like pale purple gossamer, and the stamens are wrapped in small golden fluff balls. When the wind blows, they sway gently, as if dancing a waltz. Everyone calls them aster fairies. Among them, the most eye-catching one is the tallest aster. Every day, the little ladybug Dion comes to its petals to bask in the sun. That early morning, Dion had just climbed onto the petals when she heard a rustling sound. It was little ants carrying breadcrumbs passing by. Suddenly, it began to drizzle, and the breadcrumbs of the ants seemed about to get wet. The aster flower quickly bent its petals downward, like holding up a small umbrella, just enough to cover the ants. "Thank you, Aster." The ants hid under the petals, holding the breadcrumbs tightly. After the rain stopped, there were many water droplets on the petals of the aster. Dion quickly wiped them off with her little paws. "I'll clean them up for you. Then you can bask in the sun again." Just as they were talking, little butterfly Lely flew over, still with pollen on her wings. "Let me help you spread the pollen. There will be more aster flowers here next year." Lele flapped its wings and flew among the flowers, with pollen falling on each aster flower. When the sun sets in the west, the aster flowers gently sway their petals as if singing. Dion lay on the highest aster flower. Lely rested beside the stamens, and the ants also brought a shiny little pebble and placed it beside the root of the aster flower. "This is a gift for you." The petals of the aster flower glow warm under the setting sun. It knows that it has protected its little friends, and the little friends are also protecting it with their hearts. It turns out that the time spent together is even warmer than the sunlight.